welcome to another Get to Know Your Artist episode of the WOA FM 99 show. So today is episode 6 of season 29. So this is more like a companion episode, or a companion show rather, for the WOA FM 99 radio show and podcast, which is released on a Sunday night or Monday night, depending on which part of the world you're in, okay? So Sunday nights is usually, it goes to radio and public radio, FM radios, whoever we work with. But a majority of our listeners are the podcast listeners, and you guys get it usually Monday afternoons if you're in Pacific time, or Monday evenings for the rest of the world, really. So today is the show where we talk about the breakthrough artists who have made it into the WOA FM 99 radio show and podcast. In fact, on today's episode, we've got mostly new acts, okay? And there's a major show coming up next week where we have some of the WOA acts joining me live in the studio for a chat, in conversation, so you guys are going to love that. But today it's all about introducing some brand new artists that the WOA team have discovered. So I'm going to talk about the acts, okay, not the songs, but the artists who have made it into the show. These are artists you ought to know. They're on the rise, and I'm hoping you guys, discover these guys from our show, and then of course go support these acts on their sites and their music streaming sites, etc. I'm not going to read out the list the way it's going to be on Sunday night show, okay, on the main radio show. Today I'm just going to talk about the artists one at a time, depending on whoever I've been thinking of at the moment, so the way I've written down the notes. So I'm going to talk about them and hopefully get you excited about what's coming up tomorrow night. So we kick off with, today we kick off with Clover's Daughter. Now, it's an artist. Now, this is kind of like a folk acoustic sort of band. It starts off very unplugged, very acoustic, very sort of folk, American folk rather than, English folk. And it very soon moves into folk rock territory. And it's a really cool track. I'm not going to tell you about the songs. By the way, this is one thing I've started doing, is not talk about the song on the Get to Know Your Artist show, because that way it keeps you wanting to know what song we have chosen from the artist, okay? That what we think is a certified indie song of the week. And for that, you got to tune in tomorrow to the WFM 99 radio show, which is available wherever you get your podcasts, okay? Spotify, Audible, on this show where you're watching the YouTube show right now, youtube.com/Oliver Sean, where the podcast, by the way, goes to first, okay? It comes here first before it goes to all our other platforms. So please do consider subscribing, liking this episode, of course, and clicking that notification bell, because every time we get a Get to Know Your Artist episode, or the radio show podcast, or my raw and real live performance, which happens on Friday, which happened yesterday again, you'll get notifications about that. So do consider subscribing. It does help the channel as well. And after Clover's Daughter, we've got another artist who I've been wanting to play, actually, and I've sort of put it back because I really love his song. It's called, the artist is called Drew Stevens. And one of the reasons I like this act is because he's blues rock, okay? It's my kind of music. I play this kind of music, and it's just great guitar work. And I think you're going to love the song that I've chosen for our certified indie songs of the week tomorrow. Drew Stevens, again, I won't be talking about the song, because I want you to know, keep you in suspense of what song's coming up tomorrow. I can guarantee you one thing, though. That guitar solos that you hear on the song, it's going to be completely different when you hear it live. I can guarantee you that. True. If I'm wrong, write it and tell me if I'm wrong, okay? Because I do the same. I'll do a great solo on whatever, and then when I'm live, I'll do a completely different solo, because it's just, these are the kinds of songs that just, you play what you're feeling at the moment, and sometimes you're feeling sad and your guitar solo will be great, but it'll be more melancholic, or you'll be happy and it'll be more like a happy solo. You never know. That's what guitar players do. At least I do. And I'm hoping some of the guitar players listening in today, especially Drew Stevens and others like him on the show who play blues guitar, rock guitar, they'll probably agree with me when it comes to improvising, and most blues players improvise on stage. Then we've got a band called Thin Line Men. So the next band is a band I really like. They're called Thin Line Men. Okay, great name, Thin Line Men. And the reason I like these guys is because they reminded me, especially because of my influences, or what I listen to as a producer, as a musician. I have certain artists that I grew up listening to or I listen to on a regular basis because I really like their stuff. And these guys reminded me of three of my favorite bands, okay, all put together. So it's Black Crowes, the Black Keys, and Lenny Kravitz. Now these are the three guys that I thought were these guys, okay? They really sort of blended these three sounds together. Maybe they've done it without even knowing that they sound like them. But to a listener, or to a producer rather, because I'm a producer, so I produce a lot of music in different genres, okay? For bands you watch on MTV or you listen to a commercial radio, there's a chance I've produced some of that stuff. And also, by the way, I'm very biased, I should say, towards guitar music because unfortunately, guitar is dying out in popular music, okay? So you don't really hear a lot of guitar as the main instrument, I should say, on pop songs or modern songs. You know, aside from country, modern country, which is pop basically, but they're the only sort of genre that is keeping guitar alive in modern pop music. But in rock, of course, you know, unfortunately, some rock bands are now just using samples and things like that, which is a really sad thing to do. But bands like Thin Line Men, Drew Stevens, you know, Drew Stevens, of course, blues rock, which is traditionally just guitar music, you know. But Thin Line Men, for example, they're keeping that sort of guitar music alive, and I'm loving it. Really loving it. Again, I won't tell you the name of the song, okay? Tune in tomorrow. Check out the song I've chosen for them. Then I've got a great artist. It's called Mix of Diz. That's the name of his act, okay? Mix of Diz. And I think he's a solo artist. He's been in touch with me on Instagram and stuff. I like the guy. I'll talk more about Mix of Diz on tomorrow's radio show. I'll tell you about who is the man behind Mix of Diz. His music is very electro. I wouldn't say dance though. Okay, it's electronic music, but it's not necessarily EDM music. At least the song that I've chosen. And to me, funny enough, you know, I'm a big fan of. There was this movie that I really loved back in the day called Blade. Okay, one of the Blade movies, and I could imagine this song in one of those films. I don't know why. It's just random. It's completely random thinking of Mix of Diz on a Blade film. But it's great production. As an electronic musician, he's done a great job without pigeonholing himself as an EDM artist. You know, like his music would be great for film, like for background scores, things like that in modern television or modern movies. At least that's what I would imagine, because that's the kind of music. It's electronic music. At the same time, you know, not every EDM fan wants to listen to dance music all the time. Sometimes you want to listen to electronic music that you can listen to and just freaking enjoy really well, you know. And that's Mix of Diz for you. Tune in tomorrow to find out what song I've chosen for Mix of Diz, and he's made it into our certified independent songs of the week. Episode 6, season 29. Right, after Mix of Diz, another artist I'd like to talk about is Victoria on the Grass. That's a random sort of name, Victoria on the Grass. I'm hoping to listen to more music from Victoria on the Grass and maybe finding out from her, or them, it's a band I think, what's behind the name. Because that's more interesting than anything. You know, every artist nowadays, you know, good independent artist has great songs, but sometimes it's the name. If it's a band or some sort of a themed name for an artist, it's always interesting to the fan to know what's behind the name. You know, this is firmly a pop song, I would say. I wouldn't call it new age or anything like that, but it does have elements of chill. You know, which would be great, say, for the Goa Chill Out Zone that we release every year, which is a multiple #1 charting album, a compilation of independent artists. So this is a song that kind of fits in into that sort of album. And one thing that jumped out at me from this song was, of course, great keys, great chill out arrangement on it, you know, the atmospheric sounds on it, but also the drums. I think they're samples, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't know of any drummer now who uses this kind of a sound on his drums. But they're samples because they're live drums that are sampled in, or maybe they're live. Victoria the Grass could maybe write in and tell us. But it reminded me of Phil Collins. You know, the Phil Collins drumming during the Genesis days. I don't know if any of you guys still remember Genesis, one of the legendary bands back in the day. But the drumming that Phil Collins was so known for was that reverb, sort of delayed sound on his snare, and you know, that kind of stuff. I'm a bit of a drummer myself, so. So this song sort of keeps that alive, which is really cool, really cool, you know. So Victoria the Grass, check it out tomorrow. It's going to be on the show tomorrow, Victoria the Grass and their wonderful song that we've chosen as a certified indie song of the week. After Victoria and the Grass, we've got an artist who was meant to be on last week's show, by the way, and I spoke about Ruth Manning. Ruth Manning is the artist. She's a priority artist from WOA. That's Ruth Manning. We were supposed to put her up last week, and then me and the team and the producers sort of decided, let's put her on this week's show because the song didn't really match some of the tracks coming on that came on last week. But she does kind of fit into this eclectic sort of mix that we have today. And I'm hoping you enjoy the song. Now, Victoria Manning's song is very sort of country, sort of Christian rock, sort of Americana. Okay, it's that kind of mix. But very, I like to call it Americana because it's got that nice sort of American feel. But at the same time, taps into the Christian rock section as well. Another artist I want to talk about is Jacinta Layton. She's an artist via the WOA site. You know, artists who come in via WOA, as in if you submit your music to us for consideration via the WOAFM99.com website, especially the priority submissions, and we also have standard submissions. If you do that, our team does give you more support if you're selected. You get more support, you get your photos up, you get links in our show notes, and we do push the artists for additional shows if the song is good. So these are some of the artists who have come in through our priority submissions or our standard submissions on our website. So if you're an artist listening in, do consider submitting your music for our show. Now we're accepting songs for season 30 and 31, to be fair. But you can also submit for free. You know, if you don't want to submit, if it's not a priority, and it's not really important that you get on the show right away or whatever, you can always submit for free. You know, by Groover or Music Submit or Indie Bus. These are the three of the sites we do accept submissions for. We don't accept submissions from some sites because we don't like the way they do stuff with artists. So there are some sites we don't accept, like Reverb Nation, Sonic Bits, things like that. Do not send us EPKs from these sites, okay? We do not accept it. We just reject it right away. So submit from the sites that we work with, as in who we respect, because they respect the artists, you know. So if you want to do free submissions, you can do that, or you can go to WFM99 and submit for priority consideration or for standard submissions. You know, there are always special deals. It's not expensive at all, but you do get a 24-hour turnaround in terms of us listening to the song and considering it for the show. Now, just remember one thing: if your song's not good enough, it's not going to get selected. But if it fits into into what WFM99 does, you'll get on the show, and you'll get on the show much sooner. You'll bypass the entire list of free submissions, basically. So Jacinta Layton is the name of the artist. Now, she's firmly a indie songwriter, okay, and this is a very demo feel. Now, that's another reason I'm playing this today, is to show artists that we do support demos in terms of now, for an independent artist who's not into the scene that much, or who doesn't have the experience of recording and, you know, producing and things like that, but they write good songs, you know, but they don't know how to maybe record it, or maybe they're not singers, but they're good composers and songwriters. So WFM99 does have a section towards the end of the show where we do play in some demos. They may not get onto our public radio show, or our national radio partners may not pick that song up particularly, but we will get it into the podcast, and you will get to thousands of listeners. We get 10,000 people listening to our podcast on a weekly basis, you know. So that's a great platform for a new artist who wants to maybe connect with other artists or other managers or producers who say, oh, that's a good song, but maybe my artist who I've signed on would like to sing that song. Or maybe a producer says, hey, I'll come in and maybe I can make that song really, really good for ready for radio, you know, things like that. So Jacinta Layton. So this is kind of a demo song. I'm not going to talk much about it. I'm going to put it on the show tomorrow, and I'll talk about the song when we play it, because on tomorrow's show, on the main WOAFM 99 radio show, I talk about the songs rather than the artists. I mean, I do talk about the artists, but the focus is on the certified indie songs of the week. Today, the focus is on the breakthrough artists that made it into the certified indie songs of the week episode. Well, after Jacinta Layton, we've got an artist called Micheler. Her name is Michelle, actually, but her stage name is Micheler. Am I pronouncing it right? Okay. Now, this is very new age. Okay, this is this falls firmly within the new age sort of category, but also singer-songwriter. Okay, so it's a singer-songwriter whose arrangement or whose production style, because I'm sure she's produced this herself, because a producer would sort of place it into a certain category, but as an indie artist who's producing it themselves, they don't really care about those sort of tags or categorized into a certain genre or a certain style. And if you're producing your own stuff, you'll just mix stuff up, whatever you like, like Mishler. So she's mixed the songwriting, like singer-songwriter style, with very new age chill out style. I like it. Okay, I like it personally, and I'm sure there's a fan base that she's got that likes that kind of stuff. At WOAFM 99, we support creativity as much as we can. So Mishler, I'll tell you about the song tomorrow. Check it out tomorrow. Okay, tune in. By the way, subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. But please do, when you do find the WFM 99 show, wherever you listen to it, like YouTube, YouTube on my channel, of course, but Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts. Please do subscribe and follow the podcast. It'll be great support. And of course, please put a comment in if you like any of the artists or any of the songs. That's another thing, by the way. I usually talk about this on the radio show. But if you like an artist, if you're a supporter of independent music, and if you're watching this, or you're an artist yourself, if you like one of the songs or the artists on tomorrow's show, post a comment on the podcast talking about that artist, because we've got this major platform coming up end of the year called the WOA Music Awards, and it's going to be on the finale of our annual WOA festival. We have a tour and a festival. This year it's going to be across Europe, and the finale will be in the Riviera, in the south of Europe. And the finale will be, the Music Awards will be on that last day finale, of the tour and the festival, of the WA Music Festival. So it'll be a gala event, and artists that you talk about or whatever can get into the nomination list of our WA Music Awards, which is really, really cool and great platform for independent artists. So do support the artists you listen on the show, especially the ones you really like. Put in a comment or say something nice about them, and our team will keep that in mind, and the more support that artist gets, the more shares the episode gets because of a certain artist. That artist then gets into the nomination list or nomination ballots. So do support the artists you like. Okay, so Mishler, a new age sort of singer-songwriter style. Then we've got a band called Do, just D-O-O, Do. Okay, and the song, I won't say the name of the song, but this is very modern rock. Okay, now modern alt rock, you can call it modern alt rock because it's very modern sounding, but Nickelbackish maybe, I don't know, but it's a little more cooler than that, because Nickelback is way too commercial. This one is modern. It can be on sort of top 40 style, kind of very produced sound for rock. Like I would expect this production for a pop song, but nowadays I know friends of mine who are producers within our Grammy community who produce this kind of music. So say for example, a power pop band can either be made very power pop, or they can be switched over to alt rock. Sometimes, you can do that, a modern rock, I should say. So Do is one of those bands, very modern rock, very commercial sounding, but independent at the same time, but can be on commercial radio if they push it in the right way, So it's pretty cool. Then we got an artist called Bozina. I think that's how you pronounce it, Bozshena, Bozina maybe. So this is a proper ballad, okay? We don't really get a lot of ballads on the show, but this is a traditional old school ballad. I mean, you don't really hear a lot of ballads nowadays, like Bette Midler and that kind of stuff. But this is more modern, of course. A lot of piano, a lot of proper ballad song. And I know for a fact we do have a big base of listeners who love this kind of music, okay? So Bozina, I think European sounding to me. I don't think very American or English, more European, which kind of gives the ballad a little more panache, like it just sounds more cooler, in my opinion at least. Another artist I want to play today is, or tomorrow rather, I'm going to talk about, the artist is called Beard and the Bird. That's the name of the band, Beard and the Bird. Again, very cool name for a band. If you're a band and you put a name, and if it's something like this, it really works for you, because fans are going to want to know what's the idea behind the name? How did you come up with the name? And I might talk about it on tomorrow's show. But what was the idea behind the name? If they have sent in a one sheet, and I can go through that for you guys. Now this is, I love it. I love the song they sent in because this is proper old school swing, but with a modern twist. Okay, now this is a modern band that's got that old school swing feel to it. I just love it. It's absolutely cool, and I'm glad they sent this song in because I think some of our listeners that who listen to modern music, pop music, whatever, they might actually start enjoying this kind of music and open up their minds to listen to the older stuff and go, man, that was an era of great music. But I'm glad to see musicians now still keeping music like this alive, but it's modern swing and it's very, very cool. I'd say it's a very cool sound. Yeah, that's the only word that comes to mind. It could be like, in college, you're the cool kid, or in high school, you're the cool kid. But these guys are so cool that they actually decided to do a swing song, and they were cool enough to pull it off. That's how we'll term it. They were cool enough to pull off. They were cool enough to pull off a swing track and make it freaking modern and cool. I love it. Really cool. Beard and the Bird. And last but not least, on tomorrow's show, I'm going to be playing a song by a band called Shriving Drawers. I want to know what the meaning of that name is. Shriving Drawers. It could be the last name of either artist on it, or either if it's a duo, Shriving or Shriving Drawers. So guys, if you're listening in, man, let me know what was the idea behind it. So today, in a way, without even thinking about it, a lot of the bands on the show have got some cool names, or very different sort of random names that we'd like to know what they're all about. Now these guys, it's called Lo-Fi Chill Out. That's what I call it, okay? It's got that lo-fi sound, the turntable sound going on in the background, and there is a category of lo-fi. Within the chill out music genres, there is sort of a lo-fi electro chill sort of genre that I do love personally. And these guys, I've not heard it in a while, to be fair, this kind of genre, because I don't really, I listen to an eclectic mix of music as a producer, but I have not produced a song like this in a long time. There was a song that I actually produced for the French government for their tourism campaign back in, I don't know, several years ago, and they were promoting a tourism campaign for the Massif region. I did the background track for that, the score, the song that I produced for that I wrote and composed and produced. It was called The Libran Mind, from my mind. I'm a Libran, so The Libran Mind is what I called it. And it had that lo-fi sort of feel, not similar, but it had that lo-fi sort of feel like Shriving Drawers that part of their song has. And there was another song that I made for an album that I made for BMG, or Sony BMG back in the day, and that was like a film track for Bollywood, and that had this lo-fi record playing at the back, and so it was really cool to hear it again, that kind of sound. I really liked it. And so I'm glad to play these guys on the show tomorrow. Shriving Drawers, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, so these are some of the bands that we're going to be having. And by the way, on the next episode, which is next week, I will have an artist, a friend of mine, who has worked with me on one of my biggest hit singles and part of my Devil in Blue Jeans album on the New York song. He's a rapper, and he's got a new single coming out very soon, supported by WOA International, and he'll be joining me live in the studio for an In Conversation episode, so be sure to tune in for that. I'm very excited to sort of get a video episode of that out to you guys, because all through the years, our In Conversation episodes have been very, very, very famous with independent music fans, because I speak to a lot of producers, Grammy winners, Grammy nominees, part of my group, or MTV winners and EMA nominees. So independent artists, or rather unsigned, or signed to indie labels, who have made it onto major platforms, similar to me, and how they did it, or how they made it into that zone, And it's a great sort of inspiration, or a great sort of foundation to learn from for other acts, independent acts, whether young or old, but how to navigate the business, basically. And so I bring in wonderful artists and producers and music business professionals to talk about the music business. And sometimes we just get artists that I like to talk to, because I like their music. And PM, who's going to be joining me next week, is one of those artists. I just love his stuff. And he's also got a label in Maryland, in America. And I'm proud to say I was a bit of an inspiration for him to do that stuff as well. So it's going to be fun to talk to him and talk about his brand new single. So tune in to next week, same time, same place, for our WFM 99 Get to Know Your Artist and In Conversation with PM. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you tomorrow on the WOA FM 99 radio show and podcast. Please don't forget, subscribe and like this